and welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shira.
Hi, I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self.
Hey.
Welcome, welcome. Hope you guys are having a good day or a good night or a good morning or whatever time of day it is at your place. Just hope you are enjoying it, however that may be.
Yes, and thank you all. We are watching our subscriber count grow. Thank you so much for subscribing. It really does help us, and it helps the algorithm that YouTube has. So appreciate you very much for listening or watching on YouTube and subscribing to our channel.
So if you haven't, go ahead, head over to YouTube, subscribe. Yay! And this, again, while it helps the algorithm, those words kind of sound like a little bit of disconnection or create a little bit of disconnection. But really what you're doing is helping share the message and make it reach more people. So that's what you're doing. You're helping the community find love and joy and guidance. So just by subscribing, you can help us.
And others.
Yes.
Unbeknownst to you.
So today we actually did something beforehand where we actually thought about a topic rather than just hitting record and going with it. So today we wanted to talk about our word choice, which we do frequently, and recognizing the importance of how we speak to ourselves and working on adjusting what we say to ourselves and making it more positive, and really taking a step in evaluating how you treat other people as well is kind of the path that we wanted to go down today.
Yeah, I'm going to let you kick that off.
So I was thinking about this because, we are in a day and age where information spreads rapidly. And unfortunately, a lot of misinformation also spreads rapidly. And so I think that this really speaks to that as far as the importance of learning to discern when something is truthful and whether or not you should share it. So in this thought, I remember a quote that was shared through another podcast, a month or two ago, and it really stuck with me. And so I wanted to bring that quote to the table today. Okay. The quote is from Socrates, and the quote is it true, is it kind, or is it necessary? And right. So again, we are talking in terms of what we share as far as information, the kind of words that we choose to share with other people, the way we speak to other people, really taking a moment. And this was something that Socrates really was trying to share with a lot of people and encourage people to do, is to take a moment and evaluate, is the information that you're sharing, is it truthful, is it kind, and is it necessary? And if it meets those things, then by all means, share away. But if it doesn't, then maybe rethink, and maybe you shouldn't say anything at all.
Yeah. I want to, give me just a second. Let me look this up really fast. There was an article that Carrie shared with me when we were talking about this topic. And we'll link the article below. And just to make sure that we are giving credit where credit's due, it is brightvibes.com. And at the bottom, they made this comment, and they say, most people leave it at that and assume that the story is just about the information we spread. What is the real truth behind it, however, is about the information we seek and create. Imagine how different the world would be if we only chose to seek and create information that was true or good or useful. And that little paragraph right there is what resonated the most with me. Even though the Socrates quote is very, wow, that's a thought process that we should all be having when, quote unquote, gossiping.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it makes me think of the golden rule, right? Like do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Right.
And if you are speaking unkind to somebody, would you appreciate that? Right. Receiving that kind of unkind treatment? And so really it's taking that zooming out thing and putting yourself in that other person's shoes. Like, how would that feel to receive that?
Yeah. I started thinking when I was reading about that quote, and there's like a whole story behind that quote. Feel free to take a Google.
Yeah. And again, we'll link the websites below as far as what we read over and found really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. But it had me thinking about a lot of the teachings that we've received with like our guides and stuff, and just during some of the channeling sessions that we've experienced, and how they talk about how your words carry vibration and they make an impact, whether you perceive it or not, or whether you know that there's an impact happening or not. I think some people could consider that in certain cultures, like as witchcraft or what's the word I'm looking for? What's it called when somebody, a curse, when somebody's thinking of a curse or something like that. And so when you are speaking ill towards somebody else, it does have an impact on that person's life.
You are sending negativity out into the world by perpetuating
Right.
that negative sharing.
Right.
Or sharing of negative information.
And for those of you that might have heard that and have decided, interesting, and feel that that gives you empowerment to do so, which I hope that our audience doesn't have that kind of thought process. But just so you know, vibration is like ocean waves, right? And they're ripples. And so what you send out comes right back.
And there's actually a lot of cultures that believe that whatever you put out into the world, you'll get back threefold. So when you put out negativity, when you put out evil, when you put out aggression, at some point, maybe not in this life, but at some point, you will get it back.
Yeah.
And have to work through that.
You ever listen to somebody talking, and while they're talking and they're sharing, or even as like a news story that you're reading or watching on a video or whatever, and as they're like telling you all these negative things that are happening, it starts to like physically impact you, right? Like you start getting kind of like nauseated or anxious or really angry,
Get a headache.
get headaches. And so those are just words, but those just words have all that vibratory effect on how you are going to react to it, especially if you have any inkling of an emotional connection to it whatsoever. And so I think about things like when I think about what it is that I'm saying and how is it that I'm presenting information. Now, don't get me wrong, right? We're human. There's some shit talking that I've done in my days, and I still do it occasionally, right? Like it happens.
In other words, we're not perfect either.
Right. So no judgment, right? But at the same time, now I have a better approach as far as trying to be mindful or starting to kind of backtrack. Like if I start saying things that are like negative about somebody else, I'm like, whoa, Shira, you like remember your training, remember the things that you know.
Right.
Right.
I was thinking about an experience that I had as a young nurse. So I think I was an LVN at the time. So I hadn't finished my degree, but I was licensed. So one of the, I guess, lower tiers of being a nurse. And at this point in my life, it was my first experience being somewhat of a leader in the clinic. And at the time, it was like 2009 swine flu. So it was crazy busy and it was insane. We were seeing like, I don't know, 300-400 children because I worked in pediatrics every weekend. So in a 2-day period. And I remember everybody on the team like feeling super disconnected. They couldn't go to the manager. And so I took it upon myself to actually send out an email to express this open door, like not policy, but saying that I was an open door. If anybody had any concerns, if anybody needed help, I would be available. And I thought I did a great job. Granted, I didn't go through the proper channels to get approval to send this email. And that's probably one of the points that I got in trouble for. But I did get in trouble for sending this email. And I got in trouble because of my word choices. And they were concerned that what I did was promote fear and feeling like there wasn't a team connection, which that was already there.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a way to remedy it. And so that experience, knowing that I had set out with a good intention, but that intention was not necessarily portrayed the way that I was trying to portray it. So this helped me realize that even though my intentions were good, I have to be really thoughtful about making sure that I am showing those intentions too with my word choices.
Yeah.
Also, I learned that I need to go through the proper channels, but I digress. That's not the point of this. The point is when we choose words without thinking all the way through, or at least a little bit through, we can accidentally promote negative thinking, fear, and other negative experiences. And so while intention is important, it's not the end all be all.
Yeah. Agreed. I want to touch on the topic of the intention when you're writing something or it's in a text format, because I'm sure that if this announcement that you wanted to make was said verbally, they would understand a lot easier that your intentions were good and clear, right?
Yeah. Inflection and tone of voice and
Body language.
pitch, all of that, it affects the words
Yeah.
as well and how they're received.
Right. So I do this quite a bit. The majority of my day job is communicated. Well, I was going to say the majority of it's communicated via text, but it's also on calls. But anyway, but a lot of the conversations happen in a chat format or in an email format. And so usually one of my best practices of doing is I will write out exactly what I want to write out. I do not put a to address, right? They just leave the to address so there's no accidental mistake in hitting send. And then I write the whole thing out. And then after I write it out, I go back and I reread it. And then I ask myself, what is it that you're trying to get across? Are you experiencing any emotional attachments towards what you're saying that is only from your perspective? What other perspectives could possibly be that this could be received as? And I try to rethink through and shifting my perspectives, see shifting perspectives playlist, but I try to shift my perspectives into how this could play out, right? And so by doing so, I'm giving it thought, and then I'm thinking about, is what I'm about to send even useful in the first place, or am I just wasting my own time and somebody else's?
Right.
And all of those little characteristics that are best practices, right? And so this allows me to go back and re-edit what I'm saying. So my intention is clear and my thoughtfulness is clear and my usefulness is clear. And I hope that that helps. Again, don't put the to address in there. There has been mistakes made in the past that I've heard horror stories, and I've done it myself, where you're like, I did not mean to hit send. How do I recall that? Right? Like, just type it all out. Or even if you don't want to use the email template, use a different like notes document or something, right? And write out what you're going to say. I think the same thing can be done with text messages. That's a big one. Use your notes option on your phone.
And the thing is like you can go through all these steps and still it not be received the way it was intended.
That's so true. That is so true.
So if they come back at you, take the high road, be patient, and recognize that it's an opportunity for clarification rather than taking it on as an attack.
Yeah, very true. Man, it's so interesting that going back to the quote about, and like, if you got to read the story because it's just super cool, but like the thought process of not even willing to receive the information if those three principles are not followed, like you yourself not being willing to receive that. So, well, wait a minute, where did you hear that from? Is that a fact or is that just some gossip that you've heard or a story you've heard that you don't have the source of truth from?
That's okay. So that's actually funny. So I think that it's even harder in this day of misinformation to really discern what is truth with a capital T. And I know I said that like I didn't really want to focus too much on this, but at the same time, it's totally connected. So I feel like I can't. And so truth with a capital T is what is like a universal truth. So like we are all connected.
Yeah.
We are made from love. And understanding that difference from truth with a lowercase t. Now, people's truths are different. But where we run into an issue is when we're taking somebody else's word for truth.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this happens a lot. We see it via spreading of misinformation. And it's hard because we're kind of in a place where we have to take other people's word as fact or fiction.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes in the form of news articles. However, the thing with news articles is the words that they choose, They are amped with emotion. They want you to be triggered with emotion because that will keep you coming back for more. You become addicted to the emotional feeling.
I always think of does the article that I'm reading, is it bullet pointed with facts, timestamps, dates, yada, yada, yada? Or is there a lot of emotional filler words included in the article?
Right.
And that kind of helps you determine where the writer's coming from. And if the writer's intention is to either provide you with just the straight facts of the story that they're representing or presenting, or are they trying to get you to see their perspective?
I was just thinking about, again, word choices and how those choices can impact the receptivity and how it's felt. And I was just thinking about, there was one example, there was another podcaster, another content creator that is in the spiritual community and would talk a lot about these spiritual battles that were taking place either on Earth or in space, in the universe.
Right.
And it was riddled with, we're going to have to fight and we're going to have to like stand up and unite and come together with our power to overcome and overtake the evil, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, that's a lot of fear-based rhetoric for this spiritual podcast or this spiritual show. And for me, spirituality is way more deeply connected with love and acceptance and patience and joy. Yep. And so it's such an oxymoron to me to fight a spiritual battle.
Okay. Yeah.
Like as far as, I agree that we have internal spiritual battles that we're having to fight with our own demons, AKA traumas.
Yeah.
And AKA like patterns of negative thinking. But those choices of words make it sound like you're fighting, like physically fighting, and you're not promoting love. You're not sending love out, right? You're going into it thinking you're going to potentially lose something.
I agree. And I know exactly who you're talking about. We're not going to mention this individual's name. One of the things that I experienced when listening to this podcast was two things. One, I didn't feel connected with the consistent use of the word battle. And so I agree with you there 100%. And this is where the choice of words comes into play. But had I not been following that individual for as long as I have and listening to the heartfelt messages, I know that the intention of that individual is meant with more love and kindness and passion based off of my previous experiences outside of listening to those particular episodes. And so I did get a sense of empowerment with the underlying message, though. And so that's the part that's so tricky, is that we have these words in our vocabulary that we're using. And I feel that had maybe is there a different synonym that's better and more positive than the word battle? I don't think so. But if there was a different way to approach that where you could feel more empowered without using the opposite of empowerment to get there, then maybe that would have came across a lot better.
Right. Because here's the thing. We don't know where people are at.
Right.
We don't know what their connections are to certain words either.
Right.
And more likely, people are going to be connected with the word battle in a negative way. And so if somebody were to have come across that person's show, and that was the first or second one that they were watching, they may not be empowered by love.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't know why, but my head went here, but I was like, okay, hear me out on this little rant. But I was like, oh, that's a good point, Carrie. Because if you think about the word battle and how that might feel to individuals based on where their history lies to get to what a word meaning is for them, right? What emotional triggers that word might have for them. You think of somebody that actually has gone to a war.
Right, was in the military.
In the military and has experienced loss and pain and suffering from
or even had it happen in their homeland and they just had to experience
Right.
it happening around them.
And how devastating that kind of a word would be towards them. And then you have this there's a whole other group of individuals that could think of battle with their favorite video game or card playing game or imaginary. I know what it is. I'm not going to say it because
Battleships. Battleships.
you sunk my battleship. So
What was that, like Harold and Kumar, right?
Right. That's so funny. But their thought process towards that word could be very different in the sense of like, ooh, yeah, let's get pumped up, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's where my head just went when you were explaining that and how the perspectives of, I was going to say texture of a word can feel. Yeah.
And so here we come to a place where it's a little bit of a conundrum, right? Where we are working to be conscious and sensitive to other people, but we can't always know 100% of the time what's going to trigger somebody.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to walk around their entire life, which I honestly feel like nowadays, like there's so many things that you and I were like, we're going to discuss this on our episode today. And then we're like, ooh, is that going to put us into cancel culture, right? Like,
yeah, like you even asked me, has Socrates had any cancel culture around him?
I did. I had to, because there's a little bit of eggshells in this world of platforms that we post on. And so I also feel like it's so limiting to always feel like you have to walk on eggshells in everything that you do. And so it's like, okay, I just have to feel confident that I've become a better person and whatever it is that I'm doing, where the natural ability of the way I talk or the words that I express or type out in an email or a text will be received in the most appropriate way possible. Now, the aim and target is always that, but it's never guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Exactly what you said earlier. So then I just have to be okay with that and figure out a way to navigate that conversation later.
Yeah. And that's really what it is, right? Is, if you don't hit the mark, which happens all the time, and when we don't hit that mark, it's learning how to be okay with clarification.
Yes, and receiving and giving somebody else enough space to give you the clarification in the first place, too. Mm-hmm. Being open to receiving it.
Yeah, to even ask the question, hey, did you mean this? Now, don't get me wrong. Some people come at you.
Yeah.
And can be a little harsh. And it's, okay, how do we diffuse this situation? First off, hearing, listening, active listening, and acknowledging what the other person says. Because when a person feels heard, they don't feel like they need to keep yelling.
They do not repeat themselves over and over again. Yeah.
They don't feel the need to. And so when we acknowledge that we've heard and received what they've said, then we can take that opportunity to clarify.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. I keep thinking of the different times and aspects where I've maybe rubbed somebody the wrong way in the word choices that I've used, and how your brain can get pretty scrambled when you're trying to like go into that word explanation, flight or flight thought process mode. Mm-hmm. And then how most often when you get into that mode, you tend to mess it up even further and not find the right words. And this is where the practice of taking a beat, right? Mm-hmm. Like where you take maybe a few deep breaths, and that's a participating situation. Because if you're just getting bombarded with, whoa, you just upset me by what you said, and there's no space to like think about it, right? And some people require more space than others, which I'm still learning patience about that. But it can be very disheartening for the person that's trying to come up with the better way to say things.
And I think that for me, that perspective, because I require extra time, and that is a practice for my spouse. As far as the patience, I've started to, or I try to, I don't always do it, I'm still learning, but I will try to acknowledge, I heard that, I'm thinking.
Yes.
And another way to do that may be a little bit softer, right, is I hear that you're upset. I'm trying to think of another way to better explain what I'm trying to say.
Right. A good sentence. I definitely did not make my intentions clear and in the right way. So give me just a minute. Use that one. Y'all can write that one down if you want. Yeah.
So, truthfulness. Are we sharing accurate information
Yeah.
that we know to be true? Are we doing so in a way that is kind and expressing love and thoughtfulness? And is it useful?
Yes. I feel like we can even expand on Socrates a little bit. Are you clearly communicating? Are you setting the intention to provide a clear communication? I told somebody something recently that made me chuckle just a little bit, but I said, I didn't understand any of what you were saying because I don't feel like you used enough words. I was like, why don't we try over explaining if you're like one of those individuals where you probably are thinking in your head that was a full sentence, but maybe people tell you it's not. And you just say something to the nature of like, how about we go with over explaining until you're so comfortable with explaining things that it's not even needed anymore. That's just a thought. And I thought it was funny. I'm sure the person that received that didn't think it was funny, but still.
I will say, as somebody trying to clarify, if the person is saying or repeating their confusion over and over again and not giving any space for me to respond,
Yeah.
that can keep me from being able to clarify.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true.
Y'all, don't forget to breathe. Take a breath. Shh.
Oh, we're children. I love it.
So lastly, I think this is where the old adage comes in of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Good word choice on adage, though. Did I say that right?
Adage?
Adage. I don't think I've actually heard that word before. Don't mean to digress. I was like, wait, what does that mean?
Old saying.
Funny enough, I was thinking about the, because I think also often not everybody knows what some of the acronyms, the shortcuts to phrases mean.
Like synonyms?
I don't even know if you want to call it a synonym. I feel like it's just more like, oh, well, this sounds like a really cool way to explain this one whole big thing. So we're going to give it 2 words and we're going to call it this. Kind of like when somebody says lit, it's got a new meaning now than it did when I was growing up.
Like slang?
Slang. Okay, thank you. And so there's times where I even read our comments on YouTube and somebody is using some kind of a term and I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm like, you understand I'm in my 40s. I don't understand that. So I find myself Googling. So be careful with that too. Like, explain.
And if somebody asks to explain, don't get all up in arms.
Yeah.
You don't have to defend. Just explain because it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get on the same page. That's it.
You never know. You never know.
Oh,
Is it that time?
we are moving right along
All
to the collective card reading, y'all.
Oh.
Today, we are going to be using Kyle Gray's Angels and Ancestors Oracle deck.
Yes. She said deck. This time during my shuffle for this particular deck, I asked for the messages that are needed for the collective, for anyone that watches or listens to this episode at any point in any time and space. And there was a point where I felt it was almost like I was getting the energy of the different timelines in which this could potentially reach someone. And one of them felt pretty heavy. And I remember like grabbing that card. I don't remember which one of the 3 that I gave you is that card, but it felt heavy. But then I got the exact opposite on one of the next cards where it was like almost like I was getting this perception of 2 different potentials or outcomes. So I'm very interested in seeing what's on these cards because of that feeling.
Alrighty. So first card is Guardian Angel.
Light
we
as a
haven't had
feather.
this. Oh.
Wow.
So Guardian Angel, you are not alone. Now this card, it's very simple, but it's beautiful. It is the dark night sky, so dark navy blues. In the background, very thin, is like a gold copperish outline of a circle. There's a circle with another circle inside, and then a triangle with the point at the top. The point at the top has the all-seeing eye. The point at the bottom left is the symbol for the sun. The point on the bottom right is the symbol for the moon. And laying across this symbolism is a beautiful, large white feather.
Two insanely cool coincidences, which, us here, we don't believe in that. We don't believe in coincidences. We believe in intentions. And so, two things. Number one, I asked one of my guides to present me with acknowledgement of their presence because I was feeling into that this morning. And I just do this every once in a while for like quick check-ins. Usually I get feathers. Boom. The other one is that I was just talking about two different feelings of timelines. And one was very light as a feather. And that feather is glowing, by the way, in light. And then the other, which I guess will probably present itself in one of the cards, apparently. So this is cool. That's really cool. I'm pretty excited.
This card I think it's really beautiful in its simplicity. The circles, I think they represent the never-ending nature of spirit. I think that the sun on the bottom left represents our life force energy, while the moon on the bottom right represents our emotional nature. And then the all-seeing eye on the top represents our connection to source and spirit and all those that work with us. And the other thing about triangles is this is the strongest shape.
Yeah.
And so what this says to me is there is strength and like solid ground.
In unity.
And unity, yes. Because this, what is it? The Trinity, right? We all have heard of the Holy Trinity. And I think this is a representation of one of those Trinities.
I love that. I also think that this is a message to somebody that might be asking the question, is my guides around or my angels around? Do you hear me? Are you hearing what I'm having to say? So I would take this as a very clear sign if you are or have been asking that question to yourself.
I haven't seen a feather fall around me in a really long time. And yesterday I was doing some yard work, like filling a ditch that we dug. And and I turned to grab another shovel full of dirt, and there was a feather that had just fallen right next to my foot.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, oh, a feather. And my spouse was standing right outside with me, and he was like, yeah, I just watched it fall next to you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I just thought that was cool.
Oh, my goodness. That's a beautiful card. I've never seen that one.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
We haven't pulled that one before. Alrighty, card number 2, the Trader. We've seen this one. Exchange energy to create abundance.
Trader, Trader.
So this card, in the background, there is a black and white tapestry hanging on the wall behind this gentleman that is standing forward. He is holding out a pillow, a pink decorative pillow, looking to make a trade. He also, though, has a hand near his heart, near his chest. And it looks like he's almost connecting and recognizing what you need. I'm getting this imagery of an exchange of energy. And while he is showing something that is physical, it is a material object, frequently we are encouraged to send our pent-up energy, our negative energy, and share it with Earth. And she has the power, because she is magnificent, to transmute that kind of negative energy. And being willing to accepting the beautiful, renewing energy that she shares in exchange.
I love that. I was thinking about I was leaning towards the word create on this particular card. And I keep thinking towards the thought of, I feel towards the thought of, whenever you create something, you are putting energy into it. And the output of what you're creating, whether what you're creating is to just have fun and be playful and an experience, or whatever it is that you're creating is so you can maybe increase your financial abundance. But either way, creations and thoughts and everything that we've talked about earlier today has energy connected to it, and because we're all made of that, right? We're all just vibrating at a rapid pace to seem solid.
I think too, it's important to remember to clean out the clutter
Big
and
time.
allow for new things to be able to come in. Because if our life is too full, if the room is too full, we can't shove more furniture in there and expect it to look any better. We got to clean that
feel
old
better.
shit out.
Right. Love it. Oh, the shedding.
Card number 3. Oh my God, I saw this one pass through as you shuffled.
That is so pretty.
I saw this one 3 times and I knew it was going to come out.
That is so pretty.
Because she was shuffling and I could see the bottom of the cards while you were shuffling.
Yeah.
And this one passed through your hands 3 times. And I had a feeling that this one was actually the heavy one.
Yeah? Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Which the image itself, it doesn't feel heavy. It is called Great Teacher. And it says, learn from spiritual experiences.
I got let go as soon as I saw this card, naturally.
So there is a gentleman that is standing with his side to us, and he has very long brownish blonde hair. I'm sure this looks like some level of Jesus, but I'm not saying it is. I'm just using something to describe it. And he is holding his 2 hands in front of him and releasing a dove. And behind the dove, which doves symbolize like purity, love, spirituality. I could be missing some things there. But behind the dove is the flower of life.
Oh, I see it now.
It's like very thin gold etchings behind it. So one of the things that came to mind when I'm reading this card, learn from spiritual experiences, is when we are going through those lessons, it can feel low and it can feel tough and it can be hard because, I mean, think about it. Why do we call it growing pains?
Yeah.
We are learning something new. And not only are we learning something new, we are unlearning something old. And so sometimes it can require or feel a little painful as we release these old things. Because let's be real, we can find ourselves being comfortable in our discomfort just because it's known, not because it feels good.
I agree.
And so that's why I feel this one was heavy, is because sometimes it feels heavy to go through those spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
But once we get out on the other side, there's so much light. And I'm not just saying like seeing light, but it feels lighter.
It feels lighter. The transitioning, in my opinion, from, how do I want to say this? Because it's never fully complete, right? But the practice of discovering yourself, awakening to different potentials and possibilities and abilities can feel lonely, which is why the power of community is so helpful.
And why it's so important to remind ourselves and be open to receiving the reminders that our guardians are always around us.
Yeah.
And our guides are always with us.
I agree. I think that that's a beautiful collection of cards. I feel like it's very symbolic and kind of to the point as well, not just symbolic, like looking at the guardian angel. If you've been asking yourself that question, here's your message, here's your validation and your answer and response to your questions.
You know, I was just thinking with the trader card, with the second card, how when I go shopping, I can go in and stand there in indecision for quite a while.
I love it.
Indecision?
Just
I do
standing
not
there.
like indecision.
No, when it comes to shopping. Oh.
But let me clarify.
Okay.
The indecision is related to I don't know how this is going to look in my home.
Okay.
I don't know if this will really go. So related to spirituality, I don't know how this is going to feel. I don't know how I'm going to experience life, how it will be different. So that can be scary. And so we can kind of sit with indecision about whether or not we're going to trade the old for new. And so that's what I was just thinking with this spread, is that we have reminders on either side of this choice. We have reminders that we are always connected, that we always have our angels and our guides and our loved ones near us and with us at all times. And then on the other side of that is this experience will be a great teacher.
Because we came here to learn. And trust me, we are learning.
I was actually talking with John this morning, and it was cute because he's reading a book that I recommended. And it's actually one of my dad's favorite books called Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah.
Oh.
And one of the parts in there, this is actually in our conversation this morning between John and I. And I wasn't really sure what he was getting out of the book because the book is not like super exciting. It's like a fictional story. It's kind of quirky. I like it. It's a very easy read, just simple to go through. Still has a lot of good lessons in there. And one of the things that he had pulled out this morning was life is about learning and having fun. So everything that you're doing in life should be centered around that. Are you doing this because you're having fun? Are you doing this because you're learning? And so a lot of the struggles that we go through, it's because we have lessons to learn.
To get to the place where we can let go.
And have fun.
And have fun.
Amen to that.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Love you.
I love you.
Just saying.
I
we
love you. God, the unison thing, we're really nailing it. Anyways, guys, I hope you found this conversation interesting and made you think a little bit and maybe utilizing, what was it called? It's actually Socrates' triple filter.
Oh.
So asking yourself, is it truthful? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And if it checks those boxes, then go for it.
Speaking of truthful, kind, and necessary, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of future episodes.
Necessary.
just a shameless little plug for all of us. We also have social media.
At Love Always Self on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And we also have a website at lovealwaysself.com. If you like this deck, you can check it out there on the Shop Amazon link through our website, lovealwaysself.com.
And just so you know, those are affiliate links. We do get a little kickback, and all of it goes right back to making this podcast.
Absolutely, it does.
Oh, my goodness. Beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful beings.
Beautiful beings. I'm just repeating now. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and really appreciate you hanging out with us. Again, subscribe, get our message out to the world. We just want to lift everybody up. We want everybody to feel that love, and hopefully they're open to receiving it. And on that note, love first.
Love last.
And love always.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shira.
And until next time, remember to love first,
Love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.